David Park had been fixing ships for 15 years. He started when he was 19, learning from old mechanics at the Mars docks. Now, at 34, people called him when nothing else worked. He had a gift. Broken engines spoke to him. Dead systems woke up under his hands. He worked alone, flying his small salvage ship through the empty spaces between stars, looking for wrecks that others had given up on. The message came on a Tuesday. An old contact named Wilson was dying in a hospital on Europa. He sent David a set of coordinates and 3 words: Horizon's Wake, real. David almost deleted the message. The Horizon's Wake was a legend, a ghost story that mechanics told each other in bars. It was supposed to be humanity's first great colony ship, built 800 years ago to carry 50,000 people to a new home. History said it exploded 6 months into its journey. Reactor failure. No survivors. End of story. But Wilson had never lied to him. And Wilson was dying. So David entered the coordinates and jumped. The journey took 3 weeks. The location was deep in the Kepler expanse, far from any trade routes or settlements. When David's ship dropped out of hyperspace, his instruments went crazy. There was something massive ahead. Something dark. He flew closer, his heart beating fast. The floodlights on his ship cut through the blackness. And then he saw it. The Horizon's Wake was real. The ship was enormous, bigger than anything David had ever seen. It stretched for nearly 2 kilometers, its hull covered in ancient metal plates that had turned gray with age. There were no lights, no signals, no signs of life. It was just floating there, dead and silent. Like a giant sleeping beast, David docked his small ship against an emergency airlock. The seal was old, but still worked. He put on his pressure suit, grabbed his tools, and stepped inside the Legend. The air was cold and stale. His flashlight showed long hallways covered in dust. Everything was old, ancient, built in a style that humans had stopped using centuries ago. But it was also beautiful. The walls had decorations carved into them. The floors were made of real wood, something almost impossible to find in space. This was a ship built with love, built to be a home. David walked deeper inside. He found a cafeteria with tables still set for meals. Food had turned to dust long ago, but the plates and cups were still there. He found a school with small desks and drawings on the walls. He found bedrooms with personal items scattered around. Books, photographs, children's toys. Something was wrong. This was not a ship that had exploded. This was a ship that had been abandoned. But why? And where did 50,000 people go? He found the engine room after 2 hours of walking. The reactor was cold, but intact. David checked the systems and found the problem immediately. The main power coupling had failed probably centuries ago. Without it, the ship lost all power. It became a tomb, drifting through space. David could fix it. He had the parts in his ship. It would take time, but he could bring the Horizon's Wake back to life. He worked for 3 days straight. He slept only a few hours at a time, eating cold food from his emergency supplies. The work was hard, but simple. Replace the coupling. Rebuild the power lines. Clean the reactor core. Step by step, he brought the old ship back from the dead. On the 4th day, he was ready. David stood in the engine room and pressed the activation button. For a moment, nothing happened. Then he heard a sound low and deep, like a giant taking a breath. The lights flickered. The engines hummed. Power flowed through the ship for the first time in 800 years. David laughed out loud. He had done it. He had fixed the legendary ship. He made his way to the bridge, watching as lights turned on around him. The hallways that had been dark and dead were now bright and alive. Screens flickered with old data. Doors opened automatically as he approached. The ship was waking up. The bridge was magnificent. It had a huge window that showed the stars outside. Control panels covered every wall. In the center was a captain's chair, worn but still solid. David sat in it and looked at the screens around him. One screen caught his attention. It was different from the others, glowing with a soft blue light. Words appeared on it, one letter at a time, as if someone was typing very slowly. Ana online. Memory corrupted. Recovery at 3%. David leaned forward. Ana. He remembered that name from old stories. It was the ship's artificial intelligence, its computer brain. It had been sleeping for 800 years, and now it was waking up with the rest of the ship. "Hello?" David said. "Can you hear me?" The screen flickered. More words appeared. Audio receptors functional. "Hello, unknown user. I am Ana. Who are you?" "My name is David Park. I'm a mechanic. I fixed your ship." "Thank you, David Park. I have been asleep for a very long time. My memories are damaged. I'm trying to recover them. What happened here?" David asked. "Where did everyone go? The 50,000 people who were on this ship." The screen went dark for a long moment. David thought Ana had crashed. Then new words appeared, glowing brighter than before. They had to leave. They had nitrogen monoxide choice. Why? What made them leave? Another pause. The blue light flickered like a candle in the wind. Earth was coming. Then the screen went dark. The blue light disappeared. Ana was gone, fallen back into her long sleep, leaving David alone with a mystery he did not understand. He sat in the captain's chair for a long time, staring at the dark screen. Earth was coming. What did that mean? Earth was humanity's home, the place everyone came from. Why would anyone run from Earth? David looked out the window at the stars. He had come here looking for a fortune. A ship this size, this old, would be worth more money than he could spend in 10 lifetimes. But now he did not care about the money. He needed to know the truth. He pulled out his communication device and recorded a message. He had not spoken to his sister in 5 years. They had fought about something stupid and never made up. But Emily was a historian. She studied the past. And right now, David needed someone who understood history. "Emily," he said, "I found something. Something impossible. I need your help. Please come." He sent the message into the void and waited for an answer. Emily Cho arrived 2 weeks later. David watched her ship approach through the bridge window, feeling nervous for the first time in years. He had not seen his sister since their mother's funeral. They had said terrible things to each other that day. He still remembered her face, twisted with anger, as she walked away and never looked back. Her ship docked at the same airlock David had used. He waited in the hallway, hands in his pockets, not sure what to say. The door opened, and there she was. Emily was 41 now, 7 years older than David. Her black hair had some gray in it. Her eyes looked tired but sharp. She was carrying a bag full of equipment and books. She stopped when she saw him. "David," she said. "Emily," he replied. They stood in silence for a moment. Then Emily looked around at the hallway, at the ancient walls and the carved decorations, and her eyes went wide. "This is real," she whispered. "The horizon's wake is actually real." David smiled. "I told you." Emily walked past him without saying anything else. She touched the walls, examined the carvings, ran her fingers over the old wood. David followed her as she explored, watching the wonder on her face. Emily had always loved history. She studied the lost century, a period of 100 years that had almost no records. Something had happened during that time, something big, but nobody knew what. The government said the records were destroyed in a data failure. Emily had never believed them. "This changes everything," Emily said. "Every history book, every record, everything we thought we knew. It's all wrong. They walked to the bridge together. David showed her the captain's chair and the control panels. He told her about Anna, the ship's eye, and the strange message about Earth. Emily listened carefully, her eyes moving across every screen and button. "Show me the AI core," she said. David took her deep into the ship, down to the lower levels where the computer systems lived. The AI core was a massive room filled with old machines. Cables hung from the ceiling like vines in a jungle. In the center was a large cylinder made of black metal. This was Anna's brain. "She spoke to me once," David said. "Then she went back to sleep. I've been trying to wake her up again, but I don't know enough about AI systems." Emily opened her bag and pulled out several tools and devices. "I brought everything I could find. Let me work." They worked together for the next 3 days. Emily studied the old systems while David made repairs. They ate meals together, but barely talked. The silence between them was heavy, full of old pain. But slowly, as they worked side by side, it began to feel lighter. On the third night, Emily finally spoke about the past. "I'm sorry," she said. They were sitting in the cafeteria, eating food from their ships. "What I said at Mom's funeral, about you running away, about you not caring, it wasn't fair." David looked at his plate. "You weren't completely wrong. I did run away. I've been running my whole life." "We both have," Emily said quietly. They sat in silence for a while. Then David reached across the table and squeezed his sister's hand. Emily squeezed back. No more words were needed. Some things could be fixed without talking. The next morning, Anna woke up. They were in the AI core when it happened. Emily had spent all night connecting new power sources to the old machines. David had rebuilt several damaged circuits. When they connected the final cable, the black cylinder began to glow with blue light. Anna's voice filled the room. It was soft and calm, like a mother speaking to her children. "Good morning. Full system recovery at 67%. Hello, David Park. I remember you. You fixed my ship." "Thank you." "You're welcome," David said. "This is my sister, Emily. She's a historian." "Hello, Emily Cho. Your specialty is the lost century. That is very interesting. I have information that may help you." Emily stepped forward, her eyes bright with excitement. "Anna, what happened on this ship? Why did everyone leave?" The blue light pulsed slowly. "The answer is complicated. My memories are still damaged. But I will tell you what I know." Anna's voice became slower, heavier, as if she was carrying a great weight. 812 years ago, this ship left Earth with 50,000 passengers. They were ordinary people. Families, workers, teachers, doctors. They were going to build a new colony on a planet called New Eden. But 6 months into the journey, they received a message. The message changed everything. "What message?" David asked. Earth's government had collapsed. Resources were running out. Water, food, fuel, everything. The rich and powerful had been planning for years. They built secret ships and secret bases. They were going to save themselves and let everyone else die. 90% of humanity would be left to starve. Emily covered her mouth with her hand. "That's not in any history book." "No," Anna agreed. "It would not be. The people who survived were the ones who controlled history. They erased the truth and wrote their own story. But the people on this ship," David said, "what happened to them?" "They learned about the plan. A woman named Hannah Park discovered the secret. She was an engineer, one of the people who built me. She sent the truth to every ship she could reach. And those ships, those ordinary people, they did something extraordinary. They refused to die. They refused to be forgotten. They organized. They evacuated. The blue light grew brighter. 200 ships. 2 million people. They left the known systems and flew into the unknown. They hid themselves so completely that no one could find them. And they survived. They built a new civilization, far from Earth and its lies. Emily was crying now. Where did they go? I do not know exactly. My memory is damaged. But I know they left something behind. A message for anyone who found this ship. The screen on the wall lit up, showing a map of the ship. One location was marked in red. The captain's vault, Anna said. It has never been opened. The captain sealed it before the evacuation. Whatever is inside, it was meant for you. For whoever came looking for the truth. David and Emily ran. They followed the map through the ship's hallways, their footsteps echoing in the empty corridors. They found the vault at the end of a long passage, behind a heavy metal door. David used his tools to open it. Inside, there was only one thing, a small data chip sitting on a metal table. Emily picked it up with shaking hands. She plugged it into her portable computer. The screen filled with numbers and coordinates. It's a location, she said. Not a planet. A station. Something hidden. Words appeared below the coordinates. A message from 800 years ago. For whoever finds US, the fleet is waiting. Do not let the Council find this. Humanity's future depends on you. David and Emily looked at each other. The Council was the current government, the most powerful organization in human space. They controlled everything, and they had ruled for centuries. The Council, Emily whispered. They're the descendants. The ones who planned to let everyone die. David felt cold. He understood now why the truth had been buried. Why the Horizon's wake was supposed to be destroyed. Why the lost century was lost. The people in power had never stopped lying. And somewhere out there, 2 million people were waiting to come home. The coordinates led them to a place no map showed. It was deep in the asteroid belt of an unnamed system. 3 weeks of travel from the Horizon's wake. David and Emily took his small salvage ship. Leaving the great vessel behind with Anna watching over it, they talked during the journey. Really talked for the first time in years. Emily told David about her research, about the strange gaps in history that had always bothered her. David told Emily about his life among the stars, the loneliness and the freedom. They shared meals and memories and slowly rebuilt what they had broken. On the 15th day, Emily's computer beeped. Someone was following them. David checked the sensors and felt his stomach drop. 3 military ships were on their trail, moving fast. They carried the mark of the Council, a golden circle with a star in the center. The Council had found them. How? Emily asked. How did they know? I filed a salvage claim, David said, feeling sick. When I found the Horizon's wake, it's standard procedure. I never thought anyone would care about an old wreck. But the Council did care. They cared very much. David pushed his ship as hard as it could go. The engine screamed. The hull shook. But his salvage ship was old and slow, and the military vessels were new and fast. They would be caught in hours. Then they saw it. A massive asteroid, bigger than a small moon, floating in the darkness ahead. David checked his coordinates. This was the place. But there was nothing here except rock. Look for an entrance, Emily said. They hid it. They had to hide it. David flew around the asteroid, scanning every surface. Nothing. The military ships were getting closer. He could see their lights now, bright and cold like hunting animals. Then Anna's voice came through the radio. She had connected to their ship's system somehow, reaching across the vast distance of space. David Park, there is a hidden frequency in the data chip. I have decoded it. Transmit this signal. A series of numbers appeared on the screen. David transmitted them without hesitation. For a moment, nothing happened. Then part of the asteroid began to move. A huge section of rock slid aside, revealing a metal door that stretched for hundreds of meters. Ancient lights flickered on, green and welcoming. David flew inside just as the military ships opened fire. The door closed behind them, and they found themselves in a massive underground station. Haven. That was the name carved above the main entrance. They had found it. The station was old but beautiful. It had been built inside the asteroid, using the rock as protection from the outside universe. There were living areas and gardens and workshops, all empty now, covered in dust and silence. But the power was still running. The lights still worked. Someone had designed this place to last forever. Emily found the cryosleep chamber first. It was a huge room filled with thousands of glass pods, arranged in rows like sleeping flowers. Most of the pods were empty, their doors hanging open. But a few were still sealed, still glowing with soft blue light. One pod had a name on it, Grace Lee. David checked the controls. The person inside was alive, frozen in time for 800 years. He looked at Emily, and she nodded. They activated the wake-up sequence. The process took 3 hours. They watched as the ice melted, and the pod filled with warm air. Finally, the glass door opened, and a woman sat up. Grace Lee was small and thin, with white hair and a face covered in wrinkles. But her eyes were sharp and clear, the eyes of someone who had seen things that others could not imagine. She looked at David and Emily without fear. "You found us," she said. Her voice was rough from centuries of silence. "I knew someone would come eventually." They helped her out of the pod and gave her water and food. Grace ate slowly, her old hands shaking. When she finished, she began to talk. "I was a nurse," she said. 25 years old when the evacuation happened. I stayed behind to make sure the cryopods worked. Someone had to watch over the ones who couldn't travel. The sick, the injured, the old. We put them to sleep here and waited for the fleet to send word. "The fleet?" Emily asked. "The 200 ships?" Grace nodded. They went into the deep unknown, past the edge of every map. They were going to build a new home and then come back for us. But something went wrong with our communication systems. We lost contact. Years passed. Then decades. The people keeping Haven running grew old and died. I put myself into cryosleep with the others, hoping that someone would find us before it was too late. She looked around at the empty pods. The others didn't make it. The pods failed one by one over the centuries. I'm the only one left. David felt a deep sadness in his chest. This woman had given up everything to take care of strangers, and she had woken up to find herself alone. But there was no time for grief. Alarms began to sound throughout the station. The council ships had found a way inside. Michael Kim led the squad that came through the main entrance. He was a young man, maybe 30, with a soldier's body and a soldier's eyes. He wore the uniform of a council enforcer, black and gold, with a weapon in his hand. Behind him came 20 more soldiers, all armed, all dangerous. "David Park and Emily Cho," Michael said. "You are under arrest for theft of government property and treason against the council." David stepped forward, putting himself between the soldiers and the 2 women. "This isn't government property. This belongs to the people the council tried to kill." Michael's face showed no emotion. "I don't know what lies this old woman told you, but the council is humanity's protector. We saved our species from extinction. Everything we do is for the greater good." "The greater good?" Grace spoke up, her old voice filled with anger. "Your ancestors built secret ships while children starved. They erased history so no one would know the truth. They hunted us across the galaxy to bury their sins." Something flickered in Michael's eyes. Doubt. Confusion. He had been raised to believe the council was good. Everything he knew was built on that belief. Emily stepped forward, holding up her computer. "I have proof. Records from the Horizon's wake. Messages from 800 years ago. Everything the council tried to destroy. Enough, Michael said. But his voice was weaker now. You're all coming with me. And then what? David asked. You kill us? Destroy the evidence? Keep lying forever? Michael didn't answer. His hand was shaking. Grace walked toward him slowly, her old body frail but her spirit unbroken. I knew people like you, she said. Soldiers who followed orders because they thought they were doing right. Some of them woke up before it was too late. Some of them helped us escape. The question is, which kind are you? The station shook. More alarms sounded. Something was happening outside. ANN's voice came through every speaker in the station. Message transmitted successfully. Awaiting response. Michael looked around, confused. What message? What did you do? David smiled for the first time since the soldiers arrived. We fixed the communication system. And we sent a signal to the fleet. The fleet has been gone for 800 years, Michael said. They're dead. They have to be dead. Grace shook her head. You don't know us. You don't know what humans can do when they refuse to give up. The speakers crackled. A new voice came through, strong and clear. This is Admiral James Yoon of the Free Human Fleet. We received your signal. After 800 years of waiting, we're coming home. All ships, prepare for jump. Destination, Haven Station. The room fell silent. Michael's weapon dropped to the floor. His soldiers looked at each other with fear and wonder. Somewhere in the deep unknown, 200 ships were turning toward home. And nothing would ever be the same again. The next 6 hours were the longest of David's life. Admiral Yoon had said the fleet was coming, but space was vast and the distance was great. They had to wait. And while they waited, the council was not sitting still. More ships arrived outside Haven Station. Not 3, not 10, but 50. A full battle fleet, sent to destroy the truth before it could spread. They surrounded the asteroid, cutting off any escape. Commander Lisa Han, the highest-ranking council officer in the sector, sent a message demanding immediate surrender. Michael Kim stood in the middle of the station's control room, his soldiers around him, his weapon still on the floor where he had dropped it. He was staring at the wall of screens that showed the council fleet outside, his face pale and lost. They'll destroy this place, he said quietly. They'll kill everyone inside and say it was an accident. That's what they do. That's what they've always done. Emily walked over to him. You know the truth now. What are you going to do about it? Michael looked at her. His eyes were red, and David realized the young soldier had been crying. Everything Michael believed in, everything he had been taught since childhood, was a lie. That kind of pain was hard to imagine. I joined the council because I wanted to protect people, Michael said. My father was an enforcer. My grandfather, too. We were supposed to be heroes. You still can be, Grace said. She was sitting in a chair, too weak to stand for long, but her voice was strong. Heroes aren't people who never make mistakes. Heroes are people who choose to do the right thing, even when it's hard, even when it costs them everything. Michael closed his eyes. When he opened them again, something had changed. The doubt was still there, but beneath it was something harder, something determined. My soldiers and I will buy you time, he said. Our ship is still docked inside the station. We can launch and engage the fleet. It won't stop them, but it will slow them down. You'll die, David said. Probably. Michael smiled, and for the first time he looked like a real person instead of a soldier. But if that old woman is right, if the fleet is really coming, then my death will mean something. That's more than most people get. He turned to his soldiers. They had heard everything. Some of them looked scared. Some looked confused. But none of them argued when Michael gave his orders. They followed him out of the control room, toward their ship. David never saw Michael Kim again. but he heard what happened. The council enforcer and his 20 soldiers launched their single ship against 50. They fought like demons, spinning and firing, drawing the fleet's attention away from the station. They lasted 17 minutes before their ship was finally destroyed. In those 17 minutes, they took down 8 council vessels. Michael Kim died a hero. Not the kind of hero the council created. A real one. Inside the station, David was working. He had found the main transmitter, the ancient machine that had sent the signal to the fleet. It was powerful but damaged. The original message had gone out, but the transmitter had burned out immediately after. If they wanted to communicate with the fleet, if they wanted to coordinate the return, they needed to fix it. Emily helped him, holding tools and reading old manuals. Grace sat nearby, watching with tired eyes. She knew she was dying. 800 years of cryosleep had kept her alive, but her body was finished. She had days left, maybe hours. But she refused to close her eyes until she saw the fleet return. "Tell me about Hannah Park," David said as he worked. The name had been bothering him since Anna first mentioned it. Park was not a common name in his family, but it was his family's name. Grace smiled. Hannah was a genius. She designed half the systems on the Horizon's wake. She was young, only 30 when the evacuation happened, but everyone respected her. When she discovered the council's plan, she didn't hesitate. She sent the warning to every ship she could reach. She organized the resistance. She saved millions of lives. What happened to her? She went with the fleet. She wanted to stay, to fight the council directly, but the others convinced her she was too important. The fleet needed her to build their new home. Grace paused. She had a son, a little boy named Tommy. He was 3 years old when they left. David felt something strange in his chest, a connection across centuries. Was Tommy my ancestor? Grace's smile grew wider. I don't know for certain. But Hannah's family came from Korea originally. And she had your eyes, David. The same eyes exactly. I remember because they were kind eyes, the eyes of someone who cared about others. David didn't know what to say. He had spent his whole life running from his family, from connections, from anything that could hold him down. And now he discovered that his family had been heroes, that they had saved humanity. The transmitter crackled. David had done it. The repairs were complete. "This is Haven Station calling the Free Human Fleet," Emily said into the microphone. "Do you copy?" Static. Then Admiral Yoon's voice, clearer than before. "We copy, Haven Station. Our fleet is in transit. Estimated arrival, 4 hours. How is your situation?" "Not good," Emily said. "The council has 50 ships outside. They're preparing to attack." A pause. When Yoon spoke again, his voice was iron. "Tell your people to hold on. We've waited 800 years for this moment. We're not going to let them win now." The next 4 hours were a nightmare. The council fleet began their assault, firing on the asteroid, trying to break through the rock to reach the station inside. The walls shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. Systems began to fail one by one. David ran from crisis to crisis, fixing what he could, praying it would be enough. Emily broadcast everything on every frequency she could reach, sending the truth into the void, hoping someone would hear. Grace sat in her chair, her eyes fixed on the main screen, watching for the fleet that had left her behind so long ago. The council broke through the main door. Soldiers poured into the station, firing weapons, destroying everything they found. David grabbed Emily and Grace and ran, fleeing deeper into the asteroid, hiding in old maintenance tunnels that the council didn't know about. They could hear the soldiers searching, getting closer. Running out of time. Then the screens flickered. Every screen in the station, even the broken ones, lit up with the same image. 200 ships dropping out of hyperspace. They were massive vessels, each one the size of a city, covered in lights and symbols that David didn't recognize. The free human fleet had arrived. Grace began to cry. Tears rolled down her old face as she watched the ships fill the void. "They came back," she whispered. "After all this time, they came back." Admiral Yoon's voice echoed through the station. "Council Fleet, this is Admiral James Yoon. You are surrounded. Stand down immediately or be destroyed. This is your only warning." The Council Commander, Lisa Han, responded with fury. "You have no authority here. The Council rules humanity. You are criminals and rebels." "We are the people you tried to kill," Yoon said calmly. "We are the ones you left behind, and we remember everything." The battle lasted 23 minutes. The Council had 50 ships. The fleet had 200, each one bigger and more advanced. It wasn't even close. When it was over, the Council fleet was disabled, captured, their crews taken prisoner. David, Emily, and Grace emerged from their hiding place to find the station filling with new faces. People from the fleet, descendants of the original evacuees, walking through Haven for the first time. They looked around with wonder and tears, touching the walls, reading the names on the empty cryopods. A young woman approached Grace. She was crying. "My family's name is Lee," she said. "My grandmother told me stories about you. You saved her life." Grace reached out and touched the woman's face. She made it. She actually made it. David watched as more people gathered around Grace, thanking her, holding her hands, telling her about the lives she had made possible. 800 years of waiting, and finally she knew it had all been worth it. He felt Emily's hand in his. They stood together, brother and sister, watching as the past and present finally came together. The fleet had come home. The Kepler Expanse had never seen so many ships. 200 vessels hung in the darkness like a field of stars brought to life. Each ship carried tens of thousands of people, the descendants of those who had fled 8 centuries ago. They had built new worlds in the unknown, raised generations, created art and science and music. And now they had come back to reclaim their place in humanity's story. David stood on the bridge of the Horizon's wake. He had returned to the old ship after the battle, bringing Anna the news of what had happened. The AI had been quiet for a long time after he told her. When she finally spoke, her voice was different, warmer, more human. "Thank you, David Park. I have been alone for so long. I thought the story was over, but you gave it a new beginning." "You saved them," David said. "Your records, your memories. Without you, none of this would have happened. I only remembered. You acted. There's a difference." Admiral James Yoon came aboard that afternoon. He was a tall man with gray hair and a face that had seen many battles. But when he walked onto the bridge of the Horizon's wake, he stopped and stared like a child seeing snow for the first time. "My great-grandmother was born on this ship," he said. "She used to tell me stories about the wooden floors and the carved walls. I thought she was exaggerating, but it's even more beautiful than she described." He walked slowly through the hallways, touching everything, his eyes wet with memories that weren't quite his own. David followed, giving him space, understanding that this moment belonged to the Admiral and his ancestors. They ended up in the captain's office, a small room near the bridge. The desk was covered in dust, but there were still papers on it, still photographs on the walls. Admiral Yoon picked up one photograph and held it carefully. "Captain Sarah Moon," he said. "She was the one who made the decision to evacuate. The other ships wanted to fight the Council directly. She convinced them that survival was more important than revenge. She saved all of us. What happened to her? She died during the journey to our new home. There was an accident, a hull breach. She pushed 3 children into an escape pod before the section depressurized. She was 52 years old." Yoon set the photograph back on the desk. Every child in our fleet learns her name before they learn to read. That evening, Emily made her broadcast. The fleet had given her access to their communication systems, which were far more powerful than anything the Council had. Her signal reached every human settlement in known space. Colonies, stations, ships, everywhere. Billions of people heard the truth for the first time. She didn't just tell them what had happened 800 years ago. She showed them video recordings from the horizon's wake, audio messages from the evacuation, Grace's testimony, recorded before she fell asleep for the last time. The evidence was overwhelming. The lies could no longer be hidden. The response was immediate. On dozens of worlds, people took to the streets. Council buildings were surrounded by angry crowds demanding answers. Governors and officials, who had spent their lives enforcing council laws, suddenly found themselves alone, their power meaningless in the face of public fury. The council itself collapsed within a week. There was no war, no final battle. They simply stopped existing. The people they had ruled for centuries no longer believed in them, and without that belief, they had nothing. Grace Lee died on the third day. She passed quietly in her sleep, surrounded by the descendants of the people she had saved. Her last words were for David. "Find Hannah's message," she said. "It's in the horizon's wake. She left something for her family." David searched for hours. He went through every room, every storage compartment, every hidden space. Finally, Anna guided him to a small panel in the engine room, hidden behind a piece of equipment that had not been touched in centuries. Inside was a data chip, older even than the one from the captain's vault. David plugged it into Annan's S systems, and a video began to play. Hannah Park appeared on the screen. She was young, maybe 30, with black hair and dark eyes. David felt a shock run through his body. Grace was right. They had the same eyes. "Hello," Hannah said. "If you're watching this, then our plan worked. The fleet escaped. The truth survived. And someone from my family found their way back to this ship." She took a deep breath. "I don't know how many generations it will be before you see this. I don't know what the universe will look like. But I want you to know that I'm proud of you. Whatever you've done, whoever you've become, you carry our family's blood. And that blood never gives up." Hannah smiled, and David felt his heart break. "I wanted to stay with this ship. It was my creation, my child in a way. But my son needed me more. Tommy was only 3 years old. He didn't understand why we had to leave our home. I couldn't explain it to him then, but I hope he understood eventually." Her voice grew softer. "I'm not a hero, whatever anyone says. I'm just an engineer who saw something wrong and tried to fix it. That's all any of us can do. See the broken things? Fix what we can. Leave the rest for the next generation." She reached toward the camera, as if trying to touch someone across the centuries. "Take care of each other. That's the only thing that matters. Take care of each other." The video ended. David sat in silence for a long time, alone in the engine room with his ancestors' last words echoing in his mind. Admiral Yoon found him there an hour later. "The fleet is preparing to disperse," the admiral said. "We're going to help rebuild. Share our technology. Teach what we've learned. It will take decades, maybe centuries, but we'll make humanity whole again." "What about the horizon's wake?" David asked. "It's yours if you want it. You fixed it. You woke it up. By fleet law, that makes you its captain." David shook his head. "I'm not a captain. I'm just a mechanic. The best captain I ever knew started as a cargo loader," Yoon said. "Titles don't matter. What matters is what you do with them." David thought about Hannah, about the choice she had made. She had given up the ship she loved to take care of her son. She had put people before things. That was what the Parks did. "I'll take care of her," David said. "The ship, I mean. I'll keep her running. But I don't want to be a captain. I just want to fix things. Yoon smiled. That's probably why you'll be great at it. The ceremony was held on the bridge of the Horizon's wake. Emily stood beside David, her hand on his shoulder. Anna's voice filled the room, calm and proud. Representatives from the fleet and from the newly freed human settlements watched as David accepted the responsibility for the legendary ship. He gave a short speech. He wasn't good with words, so he kept it simple. My ancestor built this ship 800 years ago. She wanted it to be a home for people who had nowhere else to go. I think that's still what it should be. A place for the lost. A place for the broken. A place where people can come to be fixed. He looked out the window at the stars. I'm going to fly this ship to every corner of known space. I'm going to find the people who need help and give them what I can. That's what the parks do. We fix things. And there's a lot of fixing to be done. The crowd cheered. Emily hugged him. Anna played music, old songs from Earth that no one had heard in centuries. Later that night, when everyone else had gone, David sat alone in the captain's chair. He watched the fleet begin to disperse, ships flying off in every direction, carrying hope to every corner of the galaxy. His communication device beeped. A message from an old contact on Mars. A ship had broken down in the outer belt. The crew was stranded. They needed help. David smiled and stood up. Anna, he said, set a course. We have work to do. The Horizon's wake turned toward the darkness, its engines glowing bright. 800 years ago, humanity had faced extinction and refused to die. They had scattered to the stars, built new lives, and finally come home. And now a mechanic with kind eyes was carrying their legacy forward, one fixed ship at a time. The universe was broken. But David Park had always been good at fixing things.